All right, now taking a look at the video clip that I recorded with the multimedia class last week. I have multiple instances of Peyton Gonzalez moving throughout the hallway, and my goal is to create a clone instance of Peyton. So the first thing I need to do is to find all of the separate instances. So I'm going to drag this window over so I can see more of what's taking place up top. And I am zoomed way in here, so I'm going to... All right, that looks good. First thing I want to do is I want to mark each instance. So when Peyton is standing off to the side of the side here, I'm going to see where he starts. He's just moved into the proper location. I'm going to hit the I for in. I'm going to watch this until he moves to the second location. And he moves to the second location right about there. So that's my out point. So I've given an I and an O, and I've marked the in and out point, and I'm going to drag this instance down into my project. I'm going to move on until he gets into his second location, which is on the very edge of the frame here. It's probably a little wider than I wanted him to be, but I'm going to hit I and watch it until he moves out of the frame. Probably start a little bit earlier. I... And he's moving forward after that. So, oh, there's my second instance. And in the case of a clone, I'm going to drop these directly on top of one another. So now he sits down in the middle of the floor. And my hand comes into the frame. I don't know that that's going to be visible. I might have to, yeah, it is going to definitely be visible. So let me move a little further forward. Get as much of this as I can before my hand flickers in front of the camera. That's not a good thing to have. All right, I was talking about the setup and I put my hand in front of the lens. And this last one I want is Peyton walking into the scene, I getting a drink at the water fountain, then he's standing back there, oh. And so I'm going to stack these clips. Now, what I've done is I've gone through and I stacked each of the viable clips, and if you look at these in order of priority, the piece that's on top of the pile is what is visible playing right now. The only time you see something change is when you get beyond the end of that clip and there's another clip beneath it that is now displaying, and then the same thing goes for each of these instances. So the visibility stacks from top down. This is very similar to other software like Photoshop, other imaging software where things stack on top of one another. Even in Word document, you can bring things to the front or move them to the back to make sure that they're displaying in the proper order. In this case, we want them all to show simultaneously, all at full opacity. We don't want to just turn one down a little bit like you may have done in a Word document or in a PowerPoint to see one thing through another. So in this case, we want this portion of Peyton showing in the back of the scene. So I'm going to start off by working my way from the top down. I'm also going to stretch this out a little bit. And I want to hit the crop button. With the crop button, there's 3 items at the bottom of the clip, and one is trim, one is crop, and then one is Ken Burns. And in this case, we're going to use the trim effect. And what it allows us to do is to grab these blue handles and to trim our video. And so what I've done is I've just slid that handle up, and I'm going to scroll back and forth, just ensuring that I don't see Peyton's feet or shadow or anything really get cut off. I'm going to drag that down a little bit more because I can see his shadow on the floor. And I got to determine where I want to cut that off. His shadow might be eliminated here. So I'm going to take it to the bottom of his feet so he has no shadow. And then I'm going to check it once again. And yeah, so Peyton doesn't have a shadow back there, but I don't think that's something anyone's going to catch. And once I've trimmed that out, I also know I'm going to have someone standing along the wall. So I'm going to trim this along the edge of the wall back there. And I'll even trim it this direction as well. Come on. Jump to the other clip. There we go. I'm going to trim it in a little bit so I can free up that wall space. So this is the area where Peyton really exists in that for this instance. And now I have 2 locations in which Peyton now exists. Moving downward, in my stack of video files, I have Peyton up front. Once again, I want to go through and crop this with the crop selection, trim depressed. I want to slide over to the left and to the right edge of Peyton. I don't need to worry about this back here being trimmed down because this is sitting on top of, this instance is sitting on top of this video clip. And so I'll click done and move forward. And so that one's trimmed, this one's trimmed with width. And now the third item over here is just playing on top of the only layer that's left below him. So I'm going to trim this and just simply reveal the right edge where we are missing Peyton, the last of the 4 instances. If I click done, I can come through here and take a look and just make sure that he doesn't disappear anywhere, nothing's crazy happening. I can see that the camera or the tripod was bumped in this bottom clip all the way on the right hand side. That was probably me touching it or moving around the camera. So I can see that the wall shakes only in this clip, which is a little bit awkward. If I can find a way to remove or not use that portion of the video, maybe just use an earlier or later portion. It's actually right in the middle. Let's see if I can't trim this down. So there's really not too much happening early in the clip. It's right at the end that it starts to take place. At this point, as with the other video that I used as an example, I can right click and make this a compound clip. It's going to title itself clone clip. And when I take a look at this now, it appears as though I have one continuous video that is working for our clone. What you'll need to do is I'll need to trim this down so that way I don't have the ends of the clips popping into the scene. So I'll just trim it down to where it works. And I now have roughly 5 seconds of cloned video with 4 instances of Peyton.